Hello everyone and welcome back to the 3T Path channel. My name is Giridhari Das and today we're continuing with the Gita Mahatmya series. This is episode 10 and we're going to see the special powers of the 10th chapter of the Bhagavad-gita. Now this is quite an intricate story, so make sure you follow it as like a story within a story within a story. It goes in a little sequence like that. And remembering the Gita Mahatmya is from the Padma Purana and it's Lord Shiva speaking with Parvati. So it starts like this. Sri Shiva said, "My dear Parvati, I will now relate to you the glories of the 10th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavad-gita as related by Sri Vishnu to Lakshmi Devi, which is in itself a stairway to the spiritual world." So of course, Shiva is telling Parvati what he's heard from Lord Vishnu speaking to Lakshmi Devi. That's how it goes. So this is the story. In Kashipuri, there was a Brahmana called Devabudhi, who was as dear to me as Nandi, my carrier, the bull carrier Nandi. He was always peaceful, and all of his senses were fixed in the glorification of Sri Krishna. Wherever he would go, I would follow him with great love, so that I could protect and serve him. Seeing my activities, my eternal servant Giridhari inquired from me, "What kind of austerities and other pious activities has this great devotee performed that you are personally rendering service to him?" Hearing Giridhari's inquiry, I replied as follows. So this is the first story. Once in Kailash Parvata, in the garden known as Punag, I was enjoying sitting in the moonlight, and suddenly there was a great wind, which caused the trees to shake with a very loud noise. So this is in Kailasa, Lord Shiva's home, his home planet, and he's there enjoying himself, resting in the moonlight, and then all of a sudden there's this great wind shaking the trees there. Suddenly a great shadow was cast all around as if a mountain was moving. Suddenly in the sky a very large bird in the color of a rain cloud appeared. Due to the flapping of its wings, it was causing the trees to shake and the dust to swirl around. Suddenly the bird landed on the ground and offered his respects to me, and also a beautiful lotus flower. So this giant bird, dark as a rain cloud, lands next to Lord Shiva in his home planet of Kailas, here called Kailash, and then he offers him obeisances and a beautiful lotus flower. After which he said, "O Mahadeva, all glories to you, the shelter of all. There is no limit to your glories. You are the protector of the devotees who have control over their senses. And you are the foremost of all devotees of the Supreme Sri Krishna. Great souls such as Brihaspati are always chanting your glories. But even the thousand-headed Ananta Shesha is not able to fully describe your glories. So what to speak of a bird like me with such small intelligence?" So he glorifies Lord Shiva very nicely. And as you see in many other scriptures, not just the Padma Purana, Lord Shiva is always glorified as the greatest devotee of Lord Krishna. After hearing the bird's prayer, I inquired, "Who are you, and where are you coming from? You look like a swan, but your bodily color is that of a crow." The bird said, "Please understand that I am the swan carrier of Sri Brahma, and the reason for my body having attained this color, I will relate to you." So we find out it's not just any bird. This is the most, important bird in the universe almost. I mean, there's Garuda, but Garuda carries Lord Vishnu. He's a half man, half eagle, not quite a bird, but this is a full bird. It's a swan. It's the swan carrier of Lord Brahma. So you might have seen images of Lord Brahma riding a swan. Lord Shiva has his bull Nandi, and Lord Vishnu has Garuda, half man, half eagle. So this is the swan carrier of Lord Brahma. Just close to Surastra, Surat, there's a beautiful lake from where this wonderfully heavenly lotus came from. I had been enjoying there for some time. Just as I was flying off from that place, I suddenly fell to the ground and my body took on this color. At that time, I was thinking to myself, how have I fallen down? And how has my body, which has always been white like camphor, turned black? While thinking this way, I heard a voice coming from the lotuses in the lake. "Oh swan, get up. I will tell you the reason why you fell down and why your body turned this color." At that time, I got up and went to the center of the lake, where there were 5 extraordinarily beautiful lotus flowers, out of which came a very beautiful lady. After circumambulating her, because you circumambulate, you go around clockwise when you want to offer respects to something or someone, like a temple or a person, you have this, you circumambulate with folded hands clockwise. Walking around, it means. I inquired as to the reason for my falling down. She replied, "Oh black swan, while you were flying, you flew over me. And due to this offense, your body has now become black. When I saw you fall down, I felt sorry for you, thus I called you here. When I opened my mouth, the scent emanating from it was able to purify at one time 7,000 black bees, who immediately attained admission into the heavenly realm. My dear king of birds, the reason I have such power, I will now tell you." So, there's this lady, the swan, Lord Brahma swan, he was there in this beautiful place near Surat, and this beautiful lake, and then he's just enjoying himself, and as he's flying out, he falls to the ground and his color changes from white to black. And this lady calls him over. This lady comes out of the lake, calls him over and says, "Look, because you flew over me, that was offensive. So now, because of your offense, you fell down." But she's so powerful that just from speaking, the bees who were around the lotuses, they attained enough pious credit to go to Swarga, to the heavenly kingdom, just from the breath of her mouth. That's how powerful she is. So now she's going to say why she's so powerful. This is another story. That's why I said it's like a story within a story. So now this is the Lotus Lady speaking to the swan. And of course the swan is speaking to Lord Shiva. So previous to this birth, 3 births ago, I was born in a Brahmana family. This is the Lotus Lady speaking. So she was, not the previous birth, but 2 births ago, she was born in a Brahmana family. And my name was Sarojavardhana. My father had always instructed me in the principles of chastity, and when I got married, I served my husband very faithfully. So she was a Brahmana lady, and she was very chaste, very correct, very pious, and she was a wonderful wife as well. One day, I found a manya, a blackbird, and due to looking after it, so she found this blackbird, and she was compassionately taking care of this poor little black bird. And due to looking after it, my service to my husband became affected, for which he became angry and cursed me. "Oh, sinful woman, you will become a manya in your next birth." So this is the topic. The topic is curses. So she was pretty innocent, but curses are there. There's this power of cursing. If you read anything in the Vedas, the Mahabharata especially, but the Puranas as well, full of cursing. There's always curses are a real thing. They change the course of people's lives. So if you believe the Bhagavad-gita doesn't talk about these things, but the other texts, they talk a lot about cursings and blessings, of course. But there's always there. So the idea is maybe there's something in your life happening now that is the effect of some previous curse, like in the case of the Lotus Lady. Who knows? So she said, he cursed her. He wasn't a very nice person, I'm sorry. I'm sure he got his due for that. But anyway, he cursed her. In my next birth, I became a black bird, just as he had cursed me. But due to my following the principles of chastity strictly, I managed to come in contact with some sages who kept me at their ashram. So this is a good example. It's like maybe you even get some crazy curse that will affect your transmigratory path, but your accumulated piety is always there. You don't lose that. So even if something goes towards a weird direction, something good also happens. It's all in God's plan. So in her case, even though she was in a little black bird form, she was in an ashram with these sages. One of the sages' daughters used to look after me. While staying there every morning and evening, I would hear the recitation of the 10th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavad-gita, due to which, in my next birth, I attained the body of an Apsara in the heavenly planets with the name of Padmavati. So she was a Brahmana lady. She was cursed to become a little black bird, but because she was being taken care of by the daughter of this sage, she would hear day and night, morning and evening, she would hear the entire 10th chapter of the Bhagavad-gita. And because of that, she then got this special heavenly birth as an Apsara. One day, I was traveling in a flower airplane when I saw the beautiful lotus flower on this lake. Coming here, I started to enjoy in the water. So she was a Brahmana lady, she was a bird, she was an Apsara, and then she's enjoying in this very lake where she's speaking from. But she's an Apsara, she's enjoying, she's like having fun in the pond, and she's naked. She's this gorgeous, beautiful, heavenly woman playing naked in this lotus pond. And then who happens to show up? Durvasa Muni. Durvasa Muni is hardcore. Durvasa Muni is the hardcore yogi that always pops up in the Puranic stories. He's very cranky, and he gives the worst curses. He's very quick to just deal the worst curses, kill people and curse them. But he also can bless them amazingly. So he shows up all over the place. Even in the story of the Pandavas, he's the one that blesses Queen Kunti with the power to have children from the demigods, which allows the Pandavas to be born. So he's a very important figure. So Durvasa Muni arrived there and saw me completely naked. And that's very bad. This is a celibate sage. You know, you can't be naked in front of a celibate sage. But if you're like a beautiful woman, it's like, they consider it very offensive because it agitates their senses. It spoils their whole practice. So of course it's their fault, but it's that thing. But being afraid of him, I immediately took the form of 5 lotuses. So she knew about him. She was like, no, I better. So she took the form of the 5 lotuses to hide from them. My 2 arms became 2 lotuses, and my 2 legs became 2 lotuses, and the rest of my body became the 5th lotus. From Durvasa Muni's eyes, fire started to emanate. So even though she tried, this is a story of very innocent people being cursed by angry men. There's something here to be learned. So she tried. She was like, immediately she took on the form of lotuses. She didn't even just hide. She even just used her rupa, her power of kama rupa to change her form. But he was really angry, and fire started to emanate from his eyes. And he said, "Oh, sinful one, you will stay in that form for 100 years. Oh, there's no need for that. But anyway, so he cursed her. After cursing me, he immediately disappeared. But fortunately, I was able to remember the 10th chapter of the Bhagavad-gita. And today I have become free from the curse. Due to you crossing over me, you fell to the ground and your body became black. But if you hear from me the 10th chapter of the Bhagavad-gita, you will be able to become free from this situation." So now she finally used the 10th chapter of the Bhagavad-gita to free her of those previous curses. After Padmavati had completed reciting the 10th chapter of the Bhagavad-gita, she left in an airplane for Vaikuntha. So she got liberated. She went back home, back to God. Enough of this angry men in this universe story. You know, she was innocent, she was pious, so she just had a little, slight deviation at the end to burn up some bad karma, becoming a little bird, becoming, these lotuses in this pond. And now she is freed. She is purified and gone. So she goes. So she teaches the 10th chapter of the Bhagavad-gita to the swan, and she goes back home, back to God, liberated for all eternity. Sri Shiva said, After Padmavati had completed reciting the 10th chapter of the Bhagavad-gita, she left in an airplane for Vaikuntha. After that, I came here and offered this beautiful lotus from that lake to you. So that just happened. He got the lotus. I got to go to Lord Shiva and tell him about this and give him this beautiful lotus. Sri Shiva said, after that, Black Swan completed his story. He immediately gave up his body and took birth in a Brahmana family as Devabudhi. So that's the Devabudhi from the beginning of the story. So he was there as a swan carrier, but then from chanting the 10th chapter of the Bhagavad-gita, he immediately got into this different program, a program of yoga. So he took this birth as a human being in a nice family, Brahmana, so he could continue and perfect his spiritual life, chanting the 10th chapter of the Bhagavad-gita. So he took birth as this Devabudhi, the Devabudhi that Lord Shiva is following, who from his childhood always chanted the 10th chapter of the Bhagavad-gita. And whoever would hear that chanting from him would attain darshan of Sri Vishnu. So he was so powerful, he had become so powerful that he was now he'd chant the 10th chapter and he was just helping. So he was purified. He was on his way back home, back to Godhead, and he's doing what most people who are on their way back home, back to Godhead do, which is to help other people do the same, purifying other people with these great scriptures. So he was chanting the 10th chapter, and everybody who would hear from him would also attain perfection and go back home, back to Godhead. So they would take darshan of Sri Vishnu, who's holding the shankha and the chakra. Whoever would hear that chanting, whether they are fallen and addicted to intoxication or even killers of brahmanas, they would attain the darshan of Sri Vishnu, who is holding the shankha and the chakra. For that reason, my dear Giridhari, I'm always serving Devabudhi. My dear Parvati, whether one be male or female, sannyasi or grihastha, in fact, whatever situation one may be in, if he chants the 10th chapter of the Bhagavad-gita, he will attain the darshan of Sri Vishnu. So that's the story. It's a really nice story. And the 10th chapter of the Bhagavad-gita is very special because it's a chapter dedicated to Aishvarya Jnana. That means the glorification of the power and position of Krishna, of Vishnu, of God. It's understanding how glorious and powerful God is. It's a wonderful chapter to really situate your devotion, to understand why it's so natural and healthy for you to be devoted and to always love and serve God, because He's so wonderful and powerful. So the whole 10th chapter of the Bhagavad-gita is on that topic. So I hope you enjoy that and have the rest of your day with lots of peace and lots of love.